100 kilos of pure gold. Locked inside a Berlin museum. Guards asleep. Cameras watching. And a crew already inside. They weren't ghosts. They were young, visible, and reckless. In the backstreets of New Cologne, 3 men and 1 inside contact met at night over coffee, not guns. No one in the group had the profile of a classic mastermind. 2 were cousins with minor records for theft. 1 had worked construction. The insider was a security guard barely out of his teens. 4 months, the 100-kilogram big maple leaf coin had been on display at the Bode Museum. A tourist magnet but also a glaring security flaw. The glass case wasn't bulletproof. The window above the tracks wasn't reinforced. And the guards rotated in predictable shifts. The cousins saw opportunity in gold weight, not artistry. They walked the museum floor during the day like ordinary visitors, counting steps, timing guards, mapping cameras on their phones. They noticed the single window facing the railway tracks, a blind spot between 2 CCTV angles. Inside, the young guard listened to his colleagues complain about low pay, broken alarms, and outdated procedures. Each complaint became another piece of intelligence. Each joke about anyone could take it was a blueprint waiting to be used. They weren't yet a crew. They were still fragments of an idea. But each night they came closer, discussing carts, ropes, and escape routes. They wanted money fast, but they also wanted the thrill. To pull off something so audacious, Berlin would whisper their names for years. And as the museum closed each evening, the guard swiped his badge and stayed an extra minute, noting how the alarms armed, how the sensors blinked, how easily a heavy object could be rolled toward that window. By March 2017, the plan was no longer a conversation. It was a timeline. A coin worth millions, unguarded for a single critical window of time. All that remained was to decide the night and cross the line from talk to action. They chose a Monday night. Museum traffic was lowest, and the security roster predictable. The cousins sat in a dim apartment above a kebab shop, sketching the layout on a scrap of cardboard. They marked the window facing the railway, the camera angles, the guard routes. They talked in short bursts, like men afraid to say too much aloud. The inside guard delivered the details piece by piece. Badge access times. Alarm reset delays. The weight of the coin and the size of the display case. He even timed how long the sensors took to rearm after a manual override. Every number mattered. Their problem wasn't the break-in. It was the weight. 100 kilos of gold. The coin was as wide as a man's torso and thick as a brick. They tested different carts at a hardware store, loading them with sandbags until one could handle the strain. They wrapped the wheels with rubber to soften the noise on marble floors. They arranged a ladder through a friend in construction. They planned to set it on the railway embankment, climb up to the museum window, break in, and drag the coin back out before the next patrol. Timing. Under 15 minutes. Phones stayed off. No texts. They spoke in person or through handwritten notes burned after reading. The cousins rehearsed the climb at night on an abandoned warehouse, carrying heavy steel plates to simulate the coin. Their arms shook. Their backs hurt. But they got faster. A small car would wait nearby on a side street. Another friend would be at the wheel, engine running, lights off. The escape route led over a bridge and into a maze of industrial alleys where cameras were scarce. The last piece of the plan was disposal. Gold this big couldn't be sold whole. They discussed melting it down, cutting it into small bars. The river under the bridge was part of their contingency. If something went wrong, the coin could disappear in seconds. By late March 2017, everything was locked. The ladder hidden. The cart tested. The window measured. The guard ready. They weren't amateurs anymore. They were a team with a countdown. When the clock hit 0, Berlin would wake up missing 100 kilos of gold, and no one would know who had walked in and walked out. Night. March 27, 2017. The S-Bahn rattled past the museum every few minutes, masking small sounds. 2 cousins in dark hoodies waited on the embankment, their ladder hidden under a tarp. The inside guard was already on shift, moving through his routine as if nothing was wrong. At 3:20 a.m. the schedule opened. No patrol for 6 minutes. They lifted the ladder, set it against the museum window facing the tracks, and climbed fast. A single hammer blow cracked the glass. Another cleared the frame. The alarm blinked, then froze, just as the guard had predicted. Inside, The coin gleamed under a dim security light. They heaved it from the display, the suction of the mount breaking with a dull pop. One man grunted, the other steadied the cart. 100 kilos rolled across marble. Wheels padded to kill the echo. Every second counted. Every footstep felt like a gunshot. Down the ladder, coin first, then men. They reached the embankment with 4 minutes left. The cart's wheels dug into gravel but kept moving. The third man, their driver, waited with engine running. The coin was shoved into the back seat, a blanket thrown over it, doors slammed. They pulled off without headlights, coasting until the first turn. No shouting, no high fives. Only shallow breaths and the ticking clock on the dashboard. By the time the alarm finally triggered inside the museum, the car was already across the bridge, blending into early morning traffic. The heist took 9 minutes. No weapons, no hostages, no shots fired. Just planning, nerve, and speed. As Berlin woke up, news of the missing coin spread. CCTV showed a ladder, dark shapes, a cart. But faces? Blurred. Fingerprints? None. The thieves had left behind only shattered glass and a hole where a legend had been. At first it felt perfect. No arrests. No leaks. News outlets called it the Big Maple Leaf Mystery. But behind the headlines, the crew was already splintering. The coin was too hot to sell whole. Every buyer they approached backed off. Gold like this carried serial numbers and a world-famous story. Melting it down was the only option, and that meant using contacts they didn't fully trust. In Neukölln, an old goldsmith hesitated when he saw the size of the job. He warned them the heat needed for that much gold would leave obvious traces. The cousins pushed him anyway. He stalled. That delay gave police time. Investigators were working in silence. They pulled every CCTV frame from the railway, nearby shops, and traffic cameras. They found the ladder bought at a hardware store weeks before. They traced carts. They followed rental cars. Inside, the guard was under stress. He'd been paid but not enough to feel safe. Detectives questioned him about his routine, his badge swipes. He played dumb, but each interview tightened the net. A cousin started spending money. A new watch, cash payments. Nothing huge, but enough to draw attention. Another began talking loosely at a gym. Berlin's biggest score, he joked. Someone overheard. Someone talked. The gold itself became a weight. 100 kilos in bars hidden in garages and basements. Too heavy to move quickly. Too famous to move quietly. And for the first time, the crew felt hunted, not by guards or alarms, but by their own mistakes. Every night, sirens in the distance made them freeze. Every knock on the door felt like the end. The perfect job was starting to fray. The headlines turned from mystery to manhunt. Berlin police formed a special task force. Detectives from organized crime units combed through every lead. They didn't just look for stolen gold, they studied patterns, who had access, who had motive, who suddenly had cash. The inside guard cracked first. He wasn't arrested. He was pressured. Repeated interviews, surprise visits at his home, subtle reminders that they already knew more than he thought. He denied everything, but his nerves showed. Calls were monitored, movements logged. Meanwhile, the cousins tried to move the melted bars. They chopped the coin into smaller ingots, melted down in a backroom furnace. The process left chemical traces in the air, metallic dust on clothes, scorched marks on tools. Each trace became a future piece of evidence. A jeweler tipped police about unusual gold requests. Another source reported overhearing men bragging about the coin. Slowly, investigators built a timeline. They matched the ladder purchase, the cart rental, and the guard's badge data. They mapped out the crew before the crew realized the net was closing. Rivalries surfaced. One cousin accused the other of keeping more than his share. Arguments grew sharper. Meetings shorter. They started rotating hideouts, using burner phones, trusting no one. But paranoia didn't erase mistakes. Surveillance cameras caught one cousin visiting the same garage multiple nights. Police placed an unmarked car nearby. They followed him to another location. Inside, they found tools for melting gold and traces of the coin's composition. Forensics confirmed the match. In July 2017, before dawn, raids hit multiple apartments in Neukölln. Doors splintered. Men were dragged out in cuffs. Police seized vehicles, cash, and gold processing equipment, but not the bars themselves. Most of the coin was gone, already melted and moved through unknown channels. The clean getaway had lasted only 4 months. Now the crew faced cameras again. Not museum cameras, but media cameras outside court. The trial became a spectacle. Berliners who had admired the audacity now watched the collapse. 3 men, 2 cousins and a friend, were convicted of theft and sentenced to prison. The inside guard received a lighter sentence but lost everything. His job, his future, his anonymity. The court heard how the coin had been cut, melted, and sold off in fragments. Experts testified that recovering it was impossible. What had been a single iconic piece of gold was now scattered, untraceable, somewhere in the black market. Police never recovered the majority of the metal. Insurance paid the museum, but the legend of the big maple leaf survived. It became a case study in security failures, and in how fast a plan can unravel under pressure. For the crew, the audacity that once felt like power turned into silence. Years in prison. Names in public records. No gold left to spend. No glory. And for Berlin, a quiet lesson. Even the boldest theft leaves fingerprints, not always on glass, but in human behavior, in habits, in mistakes. 100 kilos of gold had vanished. But the price they paid for 9 minutes of success would last far longer than the coin itself. They walked out richer than anyone in Berlin for 9 minutes, and walked into a sentence that will cost them the rest of their youth.